Harley Quinn Season 2 was back this week on the DC Universe app with a brand new episode entitled Trapped. I'm Cape Joel, and this is the video series where I give my thoughts and feelings on the episode that was, as well as shouting out any Easter eggs I can find. So, as we join the episode, Harley and the crew are desperately trying to break through into Mr.Freeze's territory of New Gotham. The only problem is security is actually worth a damn for a change, what with a giant ice wall that can't be broken by any traditional means. Luckily for our anti-hero squad, Mr. Freeze's guards turn out to be incredibly helpful. I love these guys right away, and I hope we get to see them come back. The dumb one especially reminded me of Ivan off that show Monkey Dust, if anyone has ever seen it. The guards let slip that if Harley's able to get a hold of Firefly's plasma flamethrower, that might just do the trick in melting the ice away. Too bad for Harley, the flamethrower is currently being held in the private collection of one Dr. Trap, along with about a dozen other pieces of supervillain memorabilia, from Deathstroke's sword to even more deep-cut references like Vincent Price's character of Egghead from the old Adam West show. Now, Dr. Trap is actually a one-off villain from the very short-lived Cameron Chase miniseries, once again showing that the writers of the Harley show know their DC Comics backwards and forwards. He's a really cool design with a cool gimmick. I'm shocked we haven't seen more of this guy. He also just so happens to be played by Alan Tudyk once again, who plays him as a nasally wheezing nerd, which I guess makes a lot of sense, what with given the extreme merchandise fixation. Man, first Clayface, Joker, and now this guy. I swear at the rate they're going, they could have a whole episode of Harley where Alan Tudyk just talks to other Alan Tudyk characters. Dr. Trap more than lives up to his name, so it looks like Harley and Ivy, if they want to rob him, are going to have to call in an expert ringer. Luckily for them, they know just the super thief and Catwoman. Turns out these three women actually have a pre-existing relationship with one another, which makes a lot of sense if you're a comic fan, because you know they were the Gotham City Sirens together. We find out pretty quickly that Ivy has the strangest relationship with Selina. She was left hanging on an old job by Catwoman, and while she talks tough in front of Harley, she quickly shrinks when Catwoman is around. Ivy had mentioned earlier on in the episode that she had strayed from her eco-warrior roots to basically become den mother to Harley and the crew, and now seeing a fully actualized villain like Catwoman who only cares about themselves kinda gives Ivy reason to regret. And speaking of villains with regrets, at the other end of the episode we have a funny little B-plot involving the defeated and now imprisoned Riddler trying to get under the skin of Dr. Psycho. Nigma basically calls Psycho a failed supervillain who's no better than a babysitter. This actually kicks off a very long and very entertaining little bit about the Babysitter Club books that I enjoyed. And you know what, it makes a lot of sense too for Psycho to be angry. He's a Golden Age villain himself, one of Wonder Woman's biggest foes, and yet both in the universe of this series and in real life, the character has fallen into obscurity. Naturally, Riddler was only pressing his buttons to try and escape, but in a nice bit of character building, Nigma willingly chose to stay. After all, escaping wasn't what was important to him, but proving he was smarter than his captors? Oh yeah, that was really important. Again, showcasing that while this series brings the funny, it can also develop its characters episode to episode in pretty meaningful ways. Now, Catwoman only agreed to help Harley and Ivy if it meant she could also steal from Dr. Trap. Things get complicated though when Kite Man, Ivy's boyfriend, decides to tag along for the heist and gets paired with Harley. As you might have guessed, Harley thinks Kite Man is a total dweeb and not nearly good enough for her best friend, but things do start to change when Harley realizes that Kite Man is doing all of this facing his innate fear of traps just so he can try and propose to Ivy at the end of it all. Much like the audience, we see Harley slowly but surely won over by Kite Man's adorkable nature. Too bad Catwoman spends her time actively trying to make Ivy doubt all of her recent life choices and not just starting a relationship with Kite Man. Has Ivy gone soft? Has she regressed as a villain? Does she give too much of herself to other people without thinking of the toll it takes on her? It's all very fascinating stuff. And because Catwoman was only ever in this for herself, she ends up leaving Harley, Ivy, and Kite Man behind, holding the bag once again and at the mercy of Dr. Trap, though never did this dude think that his collection of supervillain weapons could ever possibly be turned against him. Oops. In a nice reversal of fortunes, this episode actually ends with Harley being a sounding board for Ivy and her emotions, saying that Catwoman might seem happy and like she's got it all figured out on the surface, but at the end of the day, no one loves her and she loves no one back, and that's gotta be a pretty sad existence. Ivy has lots of good people in her life now, a full-on surrogate family. All she has to do is be brave enough to trust herself, which she finally starts doing at the end of the episode by accepting Kite Man's proposal finally. And so that was Trapped, an episode that actually had a fair amount to offer, both in terms of comedy and character. It's a Poison Ivy focus piece through and through, and I like that the show acknowledges what I actually heard some fans saying at the beginning of Season 2, and that is that Poison Ivy's character was lacking a lot of agency that she had in Season 1. Well, that's actually part of the story and part of her journey. This was a story really about Ivy learning to open up and trust people, but also trusting the right people, and that it's not a weakness, it can be a real strength, and that even if she is helping Harley and the crew, that still doesn't mean she can't go around and torture some chemical executives, because why not? I still have to wonder if her relationship with Kite Man will ultimately work out because, well, she's Poison Ivy and he's Kite Man, and there has to be a punchline coming at the end of this, right? Heck, even Psycho and Riddler walk away from this episode more well-rounded as characters, and their story was totally played for laughs and yet was ultimately still very effective. Just another testament to what this show can be capable of when it's firing on all cylinders. And so there you have it, everyone, another episode of Harley, and that will just about do it for me. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to follow me on social media so you're always up to speed on when a new video drops. So until we meet again, Kate Joel out, everybody.